Welcome to the NUSO Partner Spotlight. Today we're talking to BATS Communication, and we'll begin with a round of introductions. Jacob, if you want to kick that off.
I'm Jacob Bunton with BATS Communications out of Abilene, Texas.
Great. Thanks, Jacob. Thanks very much for joining us today. I'm Ryan Henley. I'm the Chief Revenue Officer here at NUSO. And it's our pleasure to be able to work with and serve wonderful partners like you, Jacob, and the BATS and that community. We're excited to have you here. Thanks for joining us.
I'm Tony Graham. I'm with NUSO Marketing Department. And let's kick it off with, tell us a little bit about BATS.
BATS was founded in 1989. Ron Batts started it. He had done some telecom work in the Metroplex, and they moved back out here to Abilene, where his wife Yvonne was from. They kind of got it going here at the kind of fall off of the end of an oil boom in the late 80s in Abilene. So everybody else was kind of shutting down, and they kind of took off. Picked up a lot of business there through the early 90s. And, we service kind of a 250-mile radius. We're kind of centralized based on the interstate. So we're about the same distance from Fort Worth that we are to Lubbock, that we are to Midland, Odessa, that we are down to San Antonio. So we roam around a pretty big area. And traditionally it was telecom, just phone systems, boxes on the wall and infrastructure cabling. I came into BATS in 2011. Became partner in 2014 and brought in an IT service in 17. And so through all of that, we've just kind of continued to grow and add abilities to support our service, and do what we need to do for our customers.
That's it's a long run there, and you've added some services along the way. Has that a lot of that been customer driven? So people asking you, gosh, can you guys do X or Y or Z, or is it what's been the nature of that?
A combination of things. Yeah, when I started, I was 23, 24. Didn't really know what it all was, but understood kind of a basic, like, why are we running the cable, doing the phone system, but we're calling these guys to come do the IT work? Why are we giving that away? Our area was a little behind as far as getting the infrastructure here in the network sense to support cloud hosted stuff. So reality is, when I started working here, they told me, you won't go more than 250 miles and be gone for 2 days. And a year later, I was in North Dakota. So, we jumped out with some oil field companies, and they wanted us to go do the labor. So we went. At that point, they were still kind of telling us as the techs, hold off, don't say anything about VoIP, don't tell them anything about VoIP. We don't know what we're doing yet. And again, 2 years later, we were installing systems statewide and linking them together. So it went fast, and the rest of that growth just became natural. That looking at the future of things on the phone side is a traditional phone company, telephone company. I knew that we really didn't have a choice but to bring in some smarter people on the IT side, the networking things, to help us understand what we needed to do with VoIP and to compete with the MSPs that are out there. Because, as we've learned, you can teach a phone guy some IT stuff, but it's hard to teach an IT guy phone things. And now we have a little bit of both in our office just to accommodate that. So we have kind of all under one roof. And here we're a bit of a unicorn because everybody else is that MSP trying to do phones, and we're the phone guys that also have IT.
Go in the other direction. Yeah. The other thing that strikes me is that with the breadth of your geography that you're covering some metropolitan kind of areas, but you're also covering some fairly rural areas. And I would imagine the type of customer you're run into in those different environments can really vary wildly. Curious if you have any comments on that, or if I'm just off base.
No, you're correct. The majority, Abilene has about, say 170,000 people now. I live in a town south 15 minutes that has 700 people in it. So that's kind of our geographic deal. There is a bunch of small towns surrounding Abilene, and it's that way going north until you get to Lubbock. It's just dot town, dot town, dot town, and the same way going south and west. And so there's a lot of little businesses out there, and there's a lot of agriculture-based business, and there's a lot of oil field-based business that's kind of in the middle of nowhere sometimes. So the Metroplex guys that are coming out or even coming out of Midland, sometimes their rates are a little different than ours because we're kind of in the middle. We can afford to accommodate them better. So yeah, it's a lot of those towns are neglected. They don't think there's an option for it, and here we come. We're kind of the small city north of here, about 50 miles right now, that is just excited to have an option. So
yeah, interesting. So you're finding that you're able to extend some of your options into the smaller communities, even though they may not have thought that they had that as a had VoIP or had more advanced communication services even available to them.
Yeah, and the majority of those people are where we're at. It's still very much handshake and loyalty and that type of relationship. So some of those have gotten burned by other options, right? Somebody came in, sold them something, dropped it, and took off on them, and that was what it was. And they got it shipped to them and said, plug it in, it'll work, and they didn't know how to make it work. Where we've adapted that with, our base and that type of relationship is that we maintain our service level within the phone system. Even though it's cloud hosted and even though they can log into it, they actually almost require us to do it. So we have an offering is basically we just offer a maintenance contract and we become part of their team. So it's no different than you would do on the MSP as the IT side. We just do the same on the phone.
What percentage of the people you're dealing with now are working with premise systems versus hybrid systems versus cloud systems, both for their IT services, but also all of their phone infrastructure?
My customer base now, so say active customer base, we are several thousand phone systems out there over the years, right, that we've maintained and continue to maintain. A lot of those have become hybrid solution that we've done with NUSO, bringing in the SIP trunk into that other platform, and that kind of is a crawl, walk, run method to move them into the cloud, because a lot of people, again, in this area are afraid of making that jump. They don't understand it yet, or they've been burned by it, or they know somebody that has. So we've been able to prove to them, hey, it works. Here it is. Now we can just roll you into the full suite and, give them all the feature set. And once we get them there, they're extremely happy. Now, true percentage wise, I don't know, probably 30% is on a hybrid and another 30 is into the cloud now. And then the rest is, we're banging on the door. So trying to get in front of them.
Yeah. So that's good news for all of us, because it sounds like we've got there's some white space still left to be migrated or brought down that digital transformation.
There it is. Like I say, we've 35, 36 years here that most of that customer base is on a third or fourth generation phone system with BATS. So it's very long-term relationship, and that's how we maintain it, and we continue to do it that way. We really don't have a choice. The guys that don't last very long around here. So
with services since 1989, you were talking about third and fourth generations of systems. You still have some of the customers from 1989?
There's a few companies, that Yvonne is still part of BATS. She comes in and does payroll and helps do some things, and she's been on every board and committee and everything imaginable. So there's several of those that she started working with in the early 90s that are still call and look for her. So
that's amazing. Yeah, 35 years on, and the relationships are still strong. That's amazing. Testament to the service.
And it's very big on reputation. That everything we do is very calculated to make sure it's the right offering to our customer base, that we trust who is servicing us so that we can maintain the service to them, right? So I'm not any good unless what we're putting out is worth it with backup, right? So
that's such a common theme that you just said the word trust, and that's such a common theme in these conversations that we have with our partners, is that building and maintaining that trust is the paramount. It's ahead of everything else in terms of their relationships and the relationships you have with your customers. And building it, maintaining it, ensuring that we're doing the best for you so that we're an extension of your brand is something that we're constantly pressing on all of our folks as well. So it's good to hear you say that. I think we're doing our best to uphold that.
Well, the first thing that I told NUSO when they reached out to me was somebody needs to come see me and let's get started, right? And within a week, Anthony and Tom were here. So, and then Patrick has swung through. So NUSO's done their part to build the relationship, and then we're we talk every day now.
I think trust got lost in the formula with this huge technology shift that's gone on in the last 30 years. I think trust is actually more important now than ever before. It seems to have been fallen by the wayside a bit too often.
The technology moves faster than we do as humans, right? So even though somebody's creating it and doing it, once it's rolling, it's hard to keep up with, and we all know that. And our customer base is looking at that going, we don't even know what it means, so we're trusting you. And a lot of our customers, hey, if it's you and if you say it's going to work, we're going to go with it. So it's paramount for us to make sure that's right. And that's, again, back to that relationship. So we did our research, and we're lucky enough to have had a several-year relationship just on the SIP trunk side that it has afforded the opportunity for where we're at now.
Are you seeing Microsoft, the Teams platform emerge? Are you seeing much uptake on that?
We do. It's not as prevalent as what I hear kind of our counterparts around the country talk about. We see it more now in school districts with budget issues and things that have gone on since COVID. And it's also something that MSPs like to put out because they can kind of go hands off with it and say, we're IT, that's the best we can give you. So a lot of them we see go to that. It could be 6 weeks or 2 years. They generally come back to us and say, look, it just didn't work out. We need a phone system. We need a better service that can accommodate what we do. And that's the most common thing we see. Now, unfortunately, we were seeing that with we still see that with any and all other branding of hosted platforms. It's very common to see somebody get that and very quickly try to get out of the contract and say, we have no service. We don't know what we're doing. They can't make it work. They can't even get our phones to ring. What do we do? So the Teams world is hard to beat. We all know that. Not everybody, but everybody's got Microsoft. And so if you can just turn it on, they turn it on. And that's a battle for sure.
I think what you're saying, though, is one of the pieces that you're saying is missing from the customer experience there, though, is the ability to reach out to bats and the ability to say in that, okay, yes, I can swipe a credit card and I can add voice services to my Teams, and I don't know who's on the other side of that. I don't know who do I reach out to when I need something fixed? Do I just call the 1-800 number and hope that I get a human being?
And
there's a missing piece there.
Central West Texas, we like to talk to people, not auto attendant, and we don't like to call 800 numbers. So one of the biggest, for us, actually, the reality is our sales pitch is not the system or the type of phone on the desk or any of that. It is us. You get us with it. There's no 800 number. You text, call, email, and we're there. We're logging into the system within minutes. It's common that myself and our director on the communication side are going down the road on sales trips, and whoever's in the passenger seat is logged in on his cell phone making program adjustments for people. So we've managed to make it fluid, and that continues to build the trust from the customer base to us, right? So making them understand that our expectation is not that you now have to have somebody that is a phone person in your business. We maintain that for you like we always have. So yeah, the trust part is definitely, it got left behind, and we are actively rebuilding that kind of impression that they have when they hear about it and host it. A lot of times they just shut off to it. And now it's the conversation is, it is what it is. These other products are gone. The on-premise stuff is no more. I can't do anything with it other than make sure it limps along until it dies. And then you got to do this either way. So we might as well rip the Band-Aid and get going. And it's generally a pretty good, feedback from the customer base. It's not always a pleasant conversation because they assume there's a lot of money up front. They're used to seeing that on the on-premise side. And then when they say, oh, well, it kind of budgets in and it's not too bad. And we have learned that it's a lot longer sales process. We spend a lot more time working with them to figure that part out instead of walking in, having a conversation and here's the system and we'll be here next week. Now it's here's how it works. Here's what you get. Here's how long it takes. Here's how the billing flows. And here's who NUSO is. Here's our part. Here's their part. How's it all come together? And it just takes a little bit longer to get everybody comfortable.
Mm-hmm. But our hope is that you can get the best of all of those things. You can get, Teams and the Microsoft suite are ubiquitous, especially as you go up the market in the enterprises. and it's got a good interface. So if you can get the power of the NUSO network, the power of the BATS service, and you can get all of that kind of integrated into your Microsoft Teams application, when that makes sense for you, then yeah, that's the three different ways that we have of connecting into that ecosystem. We hope one of those ways will work and bring the power of all the relationships together.
So on the topic of support, what's the most common problem you're seeing where you are in that region?
All routing issues, and not anything that we can control, but from the other providers, different issues. One of the things that's the big education point for the customer is not only is it not a box on the wall, your dial tone's not coming point A to point B to point C anymore. It's part of this network, and making them understand that, yeah, a hurricane hits over here or states away affects us here. We have a hurricane hit down on the coast, which is 6 to 8 hours away, and it messes with our dial tone. But at the same time, it's messing with dial tone in New York. So they don't always understand that. No, I don't want that answer, right? They just want to say, why didn't fix it? So that's probably the most common thing. Most people are pretty accepting of, quality of service things, packet loss, jittery, some of those, but a lot of that it's hard to do anything about when most people are calling from cell phones. We can't control cell phone coverage or service, and people are understanding of that. But yeah, it's more so when one of the major carriers we can't make calls in or out from, and NUSO has stepped up numerous times and helped us rectify that situation. So it's not fun when it happens, because we do law enforcement and some entities that have to be able to get calls in and out. And so when it happens, it's a quick call and an emergency that we got to get something done. So that's the most common thing. The rest of it is typical. Just, hey, we need our greetings changed. Hey, so and so left. We need a name change. I forgot how to do this. A lot of it is continuing, like just ongoing training for the end user. They're used to having a phone and they don't think about it. Well, now we have a desktop app. Now we have a cell phone app. Now, how do I do this? How do I do that? Oh, I'm parking a call instead of putting it on hold. All the little things they're not used to doing. So that's part of what we've adapted inside of our maintenance contract with the hosted platform. So whatever that, we do that based on the number of users, whatever they need, they call, they reach out, and we jump in and work with them on it. So as far as functionality problems, no, there's really hadn't been any. It's more like a bad port on a switch or something like that. That's not necessarily the same type of problem for a phone guy to figure out traditionally, but that's again why we made the move to bring in the IT guys. I had a customer yesterday that called and said, you just installed this and one of the phones doesn't work. Knowing it's probably a power problem, PoE issue, I sent one of the IT guys instead of one of the phone guys. He goes, yeah, I reset the PoE port and we're good to go. So it's a different mindset for phone guys to learn for sure. We think differently, but we honestly troubleshoot a little bit cleaner than I've learned my IT guys do. They look at this much bigger picture, and we start at one step and move up. So it's been a learning experience for all of us.
It's a good reminder to us too. I think to those service contracts that you're talking about, we need to be able to put the tools in front of you to be able to go administer those changes, add those seats, change, make disconnects, and just make the changes that your customers need. We need to make sure that we're putting those tools in your hands in an automated way, so you could do them as much in real time as possible, to include troubleshooting. And we've got some things that we're working on in advancements to that as well. But the more tools we can put in your hands, it seems to me the better off you'll be from a service perspective and ability to serve your customers.
The way we do it, absolutely. Yeah. We are very involved and want to be involved with those customers. And that's, I think, a lot of times, for not speaking on the customer side, but speaking on, let's say, the partner side or the vendor side, as I am, our biggest thing is maintaining our customer base. When we were selling an on-premise system, they were ours, right? They had to contact us to go the other way. With this, they're receiving their bill from NUSO, and they have a contact. We've had some email up to our account manager, and then they send it back to us. You want to handle it, or do you want me to jump into it, right? So the communication is good between us and NUSO, but it is, again, that training process for the customer to make them understand what we do. And I think on the vendor side, a lot of them are afraid to lose their customer base, giving the customer away. And that is kind of the reality. but it's kind of incumbent on them. And again, what we do, the way we do it, to maintain that relationship. So it's been a couple year process to kind of wade through that and make it work right. And it's been extremely successful. We started that right off the bat with that kind of maintenance contract plan for a few bucks per license per month, much better than our hourly rate. And it's 100% adoption rate. We've had nobody say no to that.
Wow.
And that's a big deal for us because we've had to change how we made our money. So it's a big adjustment, and it feels good in that sense because the customer does trust us. They do want us to be a part of it. They do want us to stay there. And that, again, is for that kind of partner vendor side, bringing in another product. Who do I trust to put my name on it? Or am I just going to be the guy in the middle that says, here you go, good luck? I think you're going to see a lot of that conversation talking to guys like me.
So off script a little bit, but you mentioned this, and so we'll see where it goes. You mentioned the transition from how you make your money, and I'm translating that to be, maybe I'll boil it down a little bit to say, if you were selling hardware, you were used to these, massive paydays and then drop down, and then massive payday, drop down, and this is a trickle that turns into a faucet, that turns into a waterfall, that turns into a massive river.
Yep.
For the residuals. What was that transition like, and how was it? What was it like for you guys, and how did you get the company over the hump? And
it was pretty brutal. There's a big marker board over here on the wall that used to be listed for sales, and now it's showing my team every Wednesday, here's the progression we're making, right? And I have to do that because we're much more sales driven than we used to have to be. On an on-premise system, 4 or 5 systems a month, upgrades or whatever it was, we're getting 50% up front. We're getting the other 50% once it's installed. Payroll's covered, bills are covered. There's no worries. All of a sudden, to go the opposite way, the faucet we had of equipment didn't go to a trickle. It just got turned off. It just said, no more, we're done, right? And that wasn't even during COVID. That was after COVID. We had equipment all the way through, and we did very well, actually. We picked up a hospital and school districts and did some things during COVID that we didn't really struggle there. We struggled in the back end of it. Mm-hmm. So our transition of that was, we had already started the hybrid model. We were building that out already. So we were increasing our recurring revenue model so that everybody here could see it. They could understand what was coming, what the plan was. And then it was making sure we had the right product to go forward with. We have 2 out there now, unfortunately, because we went with NEC, who we were with traditionally, and their original, cloud offering. And we're moving away from that, moving everybody over to NUSO based on that service relationship. Now, our method to survive the meantime was we went out and picked up large-scale cable jobs. We went in and did the infrastructure cabling, which we've always done. But we're at a point now where I'm phasing away from that because I don't want the hassle or the staff to do that, where I can actually run a smaller, cleaner staff managing hosted platform on recurring revenue. I have to, meet in the middle there somewhere.
Yeah, but the tide over there was, like you said, the cabling jobs were kind of like tide over. How do we until the flywheel kicks in for the recurring revenue, and that's paying for itself.
It wasn't pretty all the time. There were definitely some slim months because you do that big job and they pay you this part up front for material, and then we're waiting for our part of the job.
Yeah.
So, it's been an interesting few years for everybody, for sure, and just the economy in itself, but then based off of what COVID created. And the reality is we here would not be able to move forward with the cloud if COVID had not happened. That opened the door for our region, the way that they thought and think about being in the office and utilizing the systems and doing things to go, oh, we can be productive remote. We can utilize this type of technology. Because our average business owner is 60 to 80 years old here. They've been in business a long time, and it's either
doing things a certain way and
and it's again relationship based. And so them trusting you is the big thing to make that move. And part of it, where I said earlier, it is what it is situation. We lead the conversation with that. This is the reality of what is available. Here's what we do. And if you want to stay with us, here's how we're going to take care of you. Whether that's always the polite or the best way to start the conversation, I'm not sure, but it rip the Band-Aid and we go. And they just go, okay, let's talk about it, And No, it's been a long process. We're probably, look at it a 4-year process of building up enough to do what we need to do to survive. Now we're still doing cable jobs, not the large scale that we were. And we're probably by February, I'll have all of our major bills and payroll covered by recurring revenue. So that's really, that part of it has only been in play for really a push for around a year to really get that amount. So I say it kind of overlaps the way the transition goes, but to actually get us to where we want to go, we're a couple months away, and then the profit really starts to kick over, and everybody kind of stops sweating a little bit, and we go back to a little bit more relaxed and having more fun, right? So, the difference is where I said that the sales part, it was 4 or 5 systems a month. We're traditionally here anyway, kind of a fiscal year project. They need to spend money from October to April.
Sure.
We're pretty quiet in the summer. That's a good time for cable jobs and those type of things, and training and education. We would go through November, December traditionally and do 4 or 5 systems a week. Then we went to nothing. So, it'd be 2 or 3, 4 a month. And then on the hosted side, to maintain that type of revenue, we have to go sell 10 to 15 a month. And that process, again, like I say, takes a little longer to get them to move through. And then the porting process and all of the things. It's interesting in the conversations with our account manager with NUSO is, where's this one at? When are we going to get here? It's like, well, you're going to see about 10 of them cut over in November. That's just the way they all line up. And we've strategically gone after our local government and education in those areas because we know they kind of have the hardest budget almost to crack. And they're also our strongest references. So some of those are kind of sitting there waiting till the end of the year for their systems and things they have that they just want to be done with before we come in, and they think it's going to be more of a disruption than it is. And when we get done, they go, oh, we could have done this 2 months ago.
Thanks for telling the story of the journey there, because people are still working their way through the journey. And,
we are too. Yeah. And there are definitely ugly days of it and hard ones for sure. And a lot of questions. We're curious too, what other people are doing, how they're surviving. Why aren't they making certain moves? But what we've done is kind of built ourselves out to be the unicorn in the area with all the feature set and things that we can bring to the table, having actual true expert phone technicians and IT techs is unique here, and what I'm kind of gathering everywhere. So yeah, I don't know that it'll ever be easy, right? But the stress level is much less when that recurring model is in place. And
once the flywheel is kicked over and it's great, and the engine's cranking.
Yeah, you get about halfway there and you start to see it, and everybody goes, "Oh, this makes sense. Now I got it. Let's go. And they start to get excited and jump in and try to help sell and do other things. So that board over there, when they see that number and they see it going up, they start to realize, oh, as that goes up, my number goes up too, right? That's it. So yeah, we're very open with our staff and want to make sure they understand exactly the plan. If not, we wouldn't have made it through the transition. If they didn't buy in and understand it, they would have looked at it and said, well, this is going out of business. Y'all aren't selling anything. So
that's the right way to do it. It's the only way to be. Be transparent with everybody on the team, to share the goal, share the tools, get their input, attack it together. It's the only way to do it.
How did you get started with NUSO? What made you choose NUSO as your partner?
As I said earlier, we were with NEC. I don't remember the exact year. It was 94 or 96, somewhere around there. Ronnie Vaughn basically got accepted by NEC and became an exclusive NEC partner. So I grew up with that. I inherited that in the industry, and they went through a different SIP provider first that we cut a few customers over to, and then a few months into that, they made whatever the deal with NUSO was. I had already made the push and said, we're going this route. There's no reason for us not to. If we don't, we won't be here. So we attacked it and started selling the SIP trunking. And through the relationships we had at NEC, and a lot of those people kind of blended over into NUSO, we got to know everybody, and then it just kind of worked itself out, honestly, that we were comfortable. We got to experience the service side of it, and as NEC got to the point where they were done with the on-prem and we were already doing their cloud base, we weren't happy with the service we were getting. Some things finally got to that point where NUSO could show us everything, and we made the move to attack everything on one system. We want to be with one thing, right? For my customer base, where I'm always going to go back to that trust and relationship. I need it to be solid all the time. So that's with one company, right? Saying around here is, one throat to choke. Who's the problem? We want to go right up the ladder to it. So we're very happy with that move. And it's been, reciprocated both ways. There's been a lot of involvement in say aggressiveness to help us sell and to learn the product from the NUSO team. And I can't think of anything that's a complaint at the moment. There's some days obviously where something happens across the country and somebody's mad at me because they can't get a phone call, right? So then I'm calling up the ladder. But no, we kind of just happened into it because of our previous relationship, and then we're able to make our own choice from that point. So for us, it's a pretty big deal. We've been with 35 years, and 30 years of it was with one product and one manufacturer. So big jump.
Is there any particular success story early on or lately moving people to NUSO systems?
I don't know about a particular success story. Probably the largest is our county, Taylor County. We're the largest county in this region. Because again, you get outside of us, it's pretty rural until you get back to the Metroplex or Midland, Odessa. So whenever we worked that deal and moved over all of the county offices, which we're still in process of, actually, I just submitted the last LOA yesterday. And we're already in that now, moving their first office to the full platform now. So that was a big win for us as far as a reference base, because that's hundreds of phone numbers, 14 or 15 offices, and so it'll end up being a 600-700 phones and over 12 or 13 different geographic locations, but all within the city of Abilene. That's probably the largest kind of upfront win that allowed other people to kind of listen to us. When I could walk in and say, "Hey, I've got the county's dial tone," and they would go, "Oh, okay, well then you know what you're doing," or "It works," so because that covers our courthouse, our jail, our sheriff's department, all those things are within that. And so that was probably the biggest win. From that point, we try to classify them all as big wins because we service anything from 2 phones to our local school district, which is 2,300 phones and 38 locations. So we're not really isolated to any type of industry, and we're not ever going to be able to do that because, again, where we're at, Abilene is more of a service city. Everything is based off service industry, whether that's rental equipment or just the type of businesses. We're not a big manufacturing place. There is some stuff growing and coming in, but most of it is kind of built to go out and help all the other areas. That's kind of where we're at. And so I'm going to say our focus right now has been kind of moving over our West Central Texas Council of Governments, our Central Appraisal District, and those type entities that continue to grow that reference list that all kind of tie back together is entities that people know won't tolerate a problem, right? So they'll trust that the service is strong. And when I say the service is strong, I mean the dial tone itself, right? The SIP trunks work. And then they'll tolerate some phone issues, but they won't tolerate if the calls don't go through. So we tell people now, the phone's the phone. I spent my whole career telling people that this is the best phone in the world and these other things aren't worth anything and don't worry about it, to all of a sudden, hey, that phone I told you sucked is now the phone I'm going to give you. It's the best phone on the market for this. It's a different platform. It's a different situation. Nobody questions that. They just laugh and we go on because they understand the phone's the phone. They want to know that it works and they want to know somebody's taking care of it. So I couldn't really peg it down to, a big win that way necessarily. It's the biggest win for me, honestly, has been getting our staff and people to understand where we're going and what we're doing, and to talk about it in a way that I talk about it that convinces the customer that we really believe what we're doing, right? And that's a whole lot of talking from me every day, saying the same thing to the same people. But when they start saying we and this is what we do and how we do it, that translates straight over to the customer, and that's a win every time. So
yeah. Who's your favorite customer, without saying Taylor County, or maybe without naming any names? Who's your favorite one?
Probably the Jim Ned School District for numerous reasons. One, it's the district that I and Chancey, our IT director, we both grew up in that district, went to school there. My kids are in school there now. I have another business out in Tuscola down the road, and I employ a lot of those high school kids. So we're really involved there. Have a nephew on the football team now, so all those things. That's probably our favorite. We've gotten to build a really good relationship with their internal IT staff, where it's like we're in the same building with them every day, right? It's just text messages, and we've gotten to be the kind of relationship you want with a customer. The trust is there. You're part of the team, that type of deal. So, as far as that goes, the relationship wise, probably that school district. We've got some unique things here as far as kind of where we're at. There's some different types of businesses that people don't know are here. Just, different types of plants and manufacturing things that are pretty neat to be a part of. As I tell guys when they come in looking for a job, it's like you have no idea what's here in the places you're going to go. We've got a lot of churches here, so we do a lot of churches and daycares, and so we're very conscious of the type of people we hire, and also, we have to be, because we also do a lot of banking and, like I say, the school districts and all those things. So we have good people, and we do a lot of school districts, but they do. That's a reward, when they call us to say, "Can you come talk to kids and tell us what you do?" And it's starting to become of an avenue that, when I was coming out of school, I didn't know anything about this world. I didn't know this was a career option, honestly. So that's pretty cool to be able to go back and start to show people now this isn't just the highest end, smartest people out there. They're doing this stuff. We're all smart, but we're not that genius level that's designing it. Somebody has to implement it. Somebody has to sell it. So that's gone well. Yeah, that's fun.
Well, that you're so woven into the community, that you're serving them in one way, but you're being served in in other parts of your life, and it's this interwoven relationship that I think is so cool about what you just described.
Well, that came from Yvonne. Honestly, that's part of my nature to do those things. I was going to school to be a teacher and a coach, and college wasn't for me. Football didn't go the way I wanted it to, so I went out into the world and said, I need a job. And this happened to open up, and here I am 15 years later. So no regrets there. It's been fun. It's what I tell people. It's the same job every day, but it's very different because each entity, each person we work with has a different application for it. And Yvonne Batts is, like I say, has been on every committee or board imaginable from state level down. We've always been very involved with the Chamber of Commerce and our Convention and Visitors Bureau and all of these things. And like I said, we have a lot of churches in Abilene, and we also have a lot of nonprofits in Abilene, and we take care of most of them. So we offer some competitive rates for those type things. We understand, again, that kind of brings up the Teams thing. Some of those nonprofits struggle, so Teams is a battle there. When they see that we can get it in a price range for them, they're extremely happy because they get to stay with us because they trust us. And a lot of times I or Yvonne or somebody on our staff is serving on one of their boards, so we do try to do a lot within the community. We do try to participate with a lot of things. Obviously we can't do all of it. There's a lot going on everywhere, of course, but it's been a big push for us to be involved that way. Yeah.
I'm always encouraged how many of our MSPs, they really do view it as it's not just business. It is personal relationships. It is trust. And that always makes my day to hear about that. Yeah. With all the changes, technology, business models, what's been the most surprising for you? What's the most surprising thing you've seen change in the last however many years?
Probably the willingness of our area to start to listen to it. Because when it started, it was very much, no, we don't want that. Don't even want to hear about it. Don't care. Don't want it. So how quickly when that kind of switch flipped, that was surprising. That all of a sudden, like, oh, we're moving now. We've already put it in place. We've been kind of waiting on everybody to get comfortable to let us do it. And then the other side of that is kind of going back again to the trust thing, how little there is. in this new side of things, right? That what we compete with most of the time is I don't compete with another local company. We have several here. That's not my competition. My competition is Google. It's who that person in the office that's been told, hey, go find us a new system, they go Google it. Obviously, we're not the one with the budget that competes with a RingCentral or a Vonage or whoever else pops up. So sometimes the surprise is where that relationship has been strong and you lose to the internet. That's always a surprise. And then it's like, well, we'll see you again in a year or two or sooner. And usually that works out. We don't leave hostile or upset. We just say, okay, good luck. If you need us, we'll be here. We'll come back and help you out when we can. And we're also in an area where a lot of we have a lot of franchise stuff, and we don't have the corporate office here, right? But we have a lot of remote offices. So some of those decisions get made in some other state or somewhere else, and it trickles down. So we also do a lot of contract work. We may get that call out from, other vendors that we've made contact or relationships with over the years that trust us to do the labor and do those things. So there's been a shift in that for sure, but I would say the biggest surprise is for sure just been the reaction of kind of the civilian world to it, right? They don't live in it, they don't see it, they don't know. They've heard horror stories, or they don't have somebody on staff that they think can manage it, and they think they have to, and they don't want to have to hire somebody for that. So the willingness to listen to it now, I think, has been the biggest surprise, at least through the first half of this year. Now it's kind of status quo. Now everybody kind of understands. But yeah, for where we were at building it out, it was pretty bleak for a few minutes that nobody even cared, right? They were like, well, we're just going to take this thing until it quits. And it was like, well, you're going to have to do something eventually. That's kind of where we're at now. We approach it immediately that way, especially on our legacy customers that are on that platform that's been discontinued. We'll keep it on, but you've got days. That's the reality. There's no more years. It's how long. Yeah, the acceptance of it, I think, has been the biggest surprise.
How's the wireless coverage changed over there in the last 10 years? Because I would imagine that, especially over the last 10 years, that it's gotten much better.
We're 5G right here. Now, that's also part of a lot of the calling issues I was talking about earlier. Is during that transition, a lot of those issues are coming from people calling from cell phones, and the traffic's not working one way or the other because somebody else broke a pathway that, we have no control over, but it's affecting us. So rurally out where I live, going further south, where we hunt, we have land and things that most of us I grew up as a ranch hand, right? So we are out there in the woods as much as we can be, and that was nice because the cell phone wouldn't ring. So now there's nowhere to go; it rings. We have service everywhere, whether it's AT&T or Verizon. Yeah, they've covered us now.
Well, you got to be able to connect those cellular trail cameras to something. So
some work better than others. Yeah, some work better than others. Yeah.
I think the 5G, it's encouraging to hear the 5G they're in your area. I think we've got to redefine what we mean by a remote worker. Everybody thinks of a remote worker as a software developer sitting in a coffee shop, and that is a remote worker. But more and more, you can put the power of all of these tools in the hands of an HVAC technician. You can put it in the hands of an insurance adjuster who's going out. You can you can take all the power of sitting in an office, and you can stick it in a mobile device and have that power in the hands of anybody that's running around. And to have 4G and 5G networks be more ubiquitous is an enabler for all of us, really. It's good to hear the expansions heading in the right direction there.
100%. And where we see it the most is sales, and not my sales, but two other sales companies. Car dealers, those guys are on the lot. If they're missing that call, or we were used to forwarding it out to their cell phone, and those guys are in a race to get that call. The other one, my brother has a roofing company. That's the same thing, man. Those guys are going door to door. They need to be able to answer the call when it comes in, and or get it out to the guy to get over there and talk to that customer before they call somebody else. Oddly enough, maybe not oddly, but one of the others we see it is in funeral homes. When that call comes through in the middle of the night, if they don't answer it, you call the next funeral home. So that's a business that needs to make their money. And so being able to drop that on somebody's cell phone that's next to them and in their bedroom at night, they don't miss that call. Without having to forward and rely on some of those other things, and somebody's turning on and off every day and all that stuff. Yeah, it makes it more fluid and making them understand what mobility means versus remote. That's the biggest thing that kind of the conversation leads to.
Exactly.
Yeah, your people are accessible everywhere. You can't hide anymore. Nobody can get away from it. Make them log in. They're gonna get the calls. And
Back to your point about the deer stand that you have to answer the phone and now.
oh yeah, no, I don't ever have quiet time. Somebody's dinging that thing.
So what do you see on the horizon for bats next year and through the end of the decade?
The goal and the plan is to continue the path we're on. It's been productive. It's working. It's approaching all of our, like I say, our legacy customers, those on-prem systems, primarily making them aware. Here's the reality of what's happened. You may have received an email or a letter or whatever saying, hey, this is end of life. What does that mean? A lot of times people just assume it's going to turn off at the end of the year, or it stopped, the support for it ends whatever date, and they think it just turns off. Like, no, it's your box. It's going to stay on. But when it has a problem, that's where it comes in. And so kind of fine tuning our message to the customer base and getting out in front of them, that's the hardest thing, and making them understand what we really offer, because we have been around so long, and that's great. But sometimes it's also a negative where, hey, the bats, the phones guys, the old phone guys here, that's the perception, right? And I've had customers call and say, hey, I looked this up, and can you do this? What do you think I'm doing? What do you think our business is? We're still telecom. We're still putting out phone systems, but we're 10 times more than we were with the offerings. So that's frustrating. So there's a lot of stuff going into that for next year, is kind of boots on the ground marketing. Really,
you're almost reintroducing bats.
Yeah, we're not really a cold call company. And we've never really had to be. People reached out to us, and because of all of our community involvement, we're branching out, talking to people that way. So really allowing people to understand what we do. But the main thing is that we get in front of all of those on-prem customers through the next year, that now that we kind of have that end of life situation where the door is open, and we're not the only ones that were notified that end of life happened, right? So we do get calls because somebody else reached out to them, or another MSP locally that may handle their networking, that we handle the phone side, is trying to say, hey, come over and do everything with us, and we're doing the same thing. No, let us have all of it. So our goal right now is to grow and add probably two more techs in the required amount of business on our IT side, on our managed service side there. And we've got one guy in training now he's starting to learn in the programming side of the phone system side of the world, that he's just been a cable tech. And my goal there is, I don't want to necessarily increase staff too much, but obviously we want to increase that recurring revenue model. And the way to do that is getting in front of them. And so going basically door to door on all of our on-prem systems, and at least once a month saying, hey, we're still here. Whenever it happens, this is what it's going to be, because they forget about you. They don't think about it with that system sometimes. It's been running for a long time. It was a great product. And, again, it's reinventing our image, making people know we're not just Bats Communications, the old phone guy that can run a cable for you and put this on the wall or service this. We're competing at a level with the other providers. We're walking in with an offering better than what AT&T, Optimum, and Vexus, our local vendors, can do. They don't have a service tech that's going to service that phone system if they drop it on top of that contract. Some of them put them in the fine print, and they surprise them with it. And that's a fun one. So we work through those situations with people. That long-term goal is that we get all of our people moved over, and the decade, right? You asked that's kind of that long-term goal. Get everybody moved over, as many that we can get to go with us. We've lost some, and we're going to lose more, and we get them back, and that's normal. We understand that. There's nothing you can do about it in the moment. People are people. They make their choices. Again, we're very kind about it and say, good luck. We're here. Let us know. And that generally comes back around, because we are proven. We have stayed steady, and we're going to continue to do so. The hardest part of all of this is not just the equipment moving away from that and doing all these other things. It's finding the right people to be part of our company that understand what we're doing and enjoy it, because it's a unique job. You do a little bit of everything. You're going to get dirty some days running some cable. You're going to be under buildings and in and up and down things. And when I hire an IT tech, there's no more the guy that's in the back room hiding in the closet working on the computer or whatever it is. You got to have a conversation. You got to tell people what you're doing, because now the culture is intelligent to it. They understand enough about the network or the computer, or they can look it up immediately to question you. There's no more mystery, right? And that's a good thing. That we've dealt with a lot of those situations where people were being taken advantage of because of just, ignorance to technology, and that's part of the world. And it's just the generations we're in. It's I'm 36. I've got most of my staff is in their mid-20s, and that interaction is way different than my other guys that are in their 40s and older, right? It's two different conversations, and I'm training the older guys how to talk to the younger guys. So it's a lot more open. It's a lot more pats on the back, and we're all buddies and we're all friends and we're here to help you and be part of the team. But we're building our staff that way, and it's a fun thing to play with the dynamic of. And that's one of the things that I noticed when I did come up to NUSO. It's the same feel. I felt like that was the same interaction I have with my staff, the way everybody there interacts and talks and does things. So that was very encouraging for me, knowing that I'm making the right choice for the next year, for the next 10 years of what we're doing, that we're setting up our people to succeed and continue to grow. And they can see the picture. You're going to make more money off this working here in the long run than you would have 5 years ago, right? So, yeah, I think that kind of sums it up in a long way.
Fantastic. Well, we're excited to have you as a partner, and excited to continue to propel you on your growth. It's an honor to have been selected as to take on some of your cloud communications business, and we're excited to help you and your customers continue on as you continue on this journey. So thank you very, very much.
And our community is listening now. It's starting to move, and that's the biggest part, right? That's the biggest surprise, because that's always been the battle. Sometimes that we used to go in with two quotes: here's the on-premise and here's a cloud, just so we could start explaining the cloud. Knowing they weren't going to listen, they would go on-prem. We brought both, and now we're at that point where we led with that, we work them into this, and then we would settle with on-prem hybrid with Daltone. That was kind of the model that was working. And a year and a half ago, maybe a little longer, is where we got to the point of we're not doing that anymore, and I cut that off. We lead cloud. We fall back to on-prem, and knowing, kind of seeing what was coming without them telling us, like, eventually it's going to end. And so we were proactive in that approach to our customer base, and it's paid off and it's working. And good situation or not, with that end of life, that we're taking advantage of it in the way we have to.
Thank you.
You know what I mean?
You have to. Yeah. It's who was it that said don't never let a good crisis go to waste? That's Churchill or somebody like that said that.
Yeah, somebody smarter than me.
Somebody famous. It wasn't me.
We want to be aligned with one company. So as soon as that offering meets the need here, that's what we're going to sell. And is that one package where it's more secure for me and my staff, and it's more secure for the customer, right? Again, that one throat to choke thing is the most pleasant metaphor, but it's reality, and it works. So that's what we're building out, and that's how NUSO has fit our need, and we're hoping that growth continues on that side too. But there's a lot of things that we understand and we're going to push for that need to happen on the platform side, the communication side first, right? And I do appreciate that is such a focus right now, that it's like, hey, we've got this, but this is priority right now. And that's fair. And I expect that, because it's the same thing for me. Eventually, we'll all get to the same spot there, I hope.
Well, keep the feedback coming.
No worries there. I don't mind telling you how it's going, good or bad.
Perfect. Yeah. Well, thanks again for the time. Really, really do appreciate it.
Oh, thank you all.